I never meant to become entangled in his world, but from the moment I saw that encrypted folder on his private server, I knew there was no turning back. I arrived at Blackwood Industries on an overcast Monday, the kind of day where every drop of rain feels like a warning. My heels clicked on the marble foyer as I checked in with security. My press badge granted me temporary clearance to interview Malcolm Blackwood, one of the most guarded CEOs in the country. He agreed to a sit-down about his new urban redevelopment project, publicity I was assigned to handle for a high-profile magazine. But between us lay miles of guarded digital corridors and stone-cold PR barriers. I'd prepared polite questions about zoning laws and community outreach, but I was hiding mine. The ride up in the glass elevator was almost cinematic, the city's skyline sliding past in muted grays and silvers, the kind of view that makes anyone feel both grand and insignificant. I checked my reflection in the glass door before stepping into Suite 45B, tailored navy blazer. Crisp white blouse, hair swept back into a no-nonsense chignon. Enough polish to earn respect, enough softness to look approachable. As the door swished open, I stepped into a hushed, minimalist office where every piece of furniture looked expensive and every surface was spotless. He wasn't there yet. Just a faint hum from the air conditioner, the low pulse of the city beneath the glass. When he entered, it was like gravity dipped. Malcolm Blackwood stood almost 6.5 feet tall, his dark hair streaked with the faintest lines of silver, wearing a charcoal suit that hung on him like a promise. His eyes were a pale, startling blue, observant, calculating. He offered me a polite nod, his handshake firm but not crushing. "Thank you for coming, Miss Harper," he said, voice smooth as oil. "I trust the commute wasn't too unpleasant." "Not at all," I replied, taking the seat he pointed to. "Your lobby is quite impressive." "Thank you," he said, settling into his own chair. We aimed to leave an impression. We began with the usual pleasantries. How the article would help shape public perception, how redevelopment could rejuvenate neighborhoods, how Blackwood Industries wanted to be seen as a partner, not a gentrifier. I kept questions light, his answers practiced. But as we talked, I couldn't stop my eyes flicking to the sleek laptop perched on a side table, his personal machine, left open in a way that felt almost deliberate. A folder caught my eye. Confidential_financials_0825. My pulse quickened. I forced my attention back to his words about tax incentives. While my mind raced, if I could access whatever lay in that folder, I'd have the scoop of a lifetime. Proof of diverted funds, shell companies, something so explosive it would topple him. That evidence would sell magazines, ads, the works. But more than that, it would expose a man who wielded power like a weapon. The interview wrapped in under 30 minutes. I thanked him, collected my notes, and stepped back into the elevator with a tremor I pretended was from the cold. On the ride down, I realized I'd left my voice recorder plugged into the console. I cursed under my breath. No chance to circle back. And yet, something in me whispered that tonight I would find another way in.at home. I locked the apartment door, made myself a cup of chamomile tea, and booted up my laptop. My small flat overlooked a courtyard where lights flickered in lonely windows. My friend Jess used to tease me about living in the rabbit hutch, but it was mine. My sanctuary. I pulled out my phone and dialed her. "Hey, you busy tonight?" "Reading that new thriller," she said. "Why? You disappear for an hour." I panic. "I need help. A little hack job." I hesitated. "Just get me into a folder on a CEO's laptop." Silence. Then laughter. "You're ridiculous. But okay, meet me in 20. Jess was ex-NSA, now a private cybersecurity consultant. Years ago, she'd saved me from ruin when I accidentally sent a draft article to the wrong source. Since then, we'd promised to return favors. 20 minutes later, she crept into my apartment, laptop bag in hand and eyes shining. She'd always looked ready for covert ops, with her cropped hair and black jeans that we pushed my desk to the wall and set up shop. "So spill," she said, pulling up a terminal. "I need a name, IP range, anything." I told her about Suite 45B, about the unsecured port I'd noticed by the service panel in the hallway. She'd seen them before, disguised as network switches. "You're a lunatic," she muttered, but launched a scan. In minutes, she found the port's MAC address, traced it to his server. "Gotcha." Hours later, After a tense series of exploits and disguised packets, we had access. I held my breath as I clicked into confidential_financials_0825 and froze. It wasn't what I expected. Yes, there were offshore accounts, payments to unlisted entities, but also something else. Personal files, emails between Malcolm and someone named L, all signed simply M. The messages spoke of vulnerability, of regret, of longing. "I'm sorry I left you," one read. "I did what I had to. I hope you understand." My chest tightened. I scrolled, heart hammering. They spoke in hushed tones about betrayals that seemed more personal than corporate, mistrust, heartbreak, a promise to make things right. Each line chipped away at the image I had of him as a cold tightened at 3 in the morning. I leaned back, rubbing my eyes. The tea had long since gone cold. I felt the weight of what I'd discovered, evidence that could break him, and personal truths that made him human. I closed the laptop. "We have two choices," I told Jess. "We leak the financials, go public and get rich, or we use this for leverage. He could pay us to keep quiet." Jess looked at me, tired but curious. "So a deal? Like blackmail?" "Call it negotiation," I said, voice low. "I'll propose I become PR chief, manage his scandals from the inside in exchange for..." Silence. Her eyebrows shot up. "You'd work for him?" "Yes," I said, inhaling. "And get closer. Find out what he's really hiding. And maybe something more." She shook her head, but I could tell she understood. By dawn, we'd wiped our tracks, and I fell into bed, mind spinning. My phone buzzed at 9. An email from Blackwood Industries. "Ms. Harper, unauthorized access detected on our network. Please contact our security office immediately." His security, alerted because of me. My heart lurched. I sat up, dread pooling in my stomach. No time to erase everything. He'd know. It was me. I left my apartment in a daze. The sky was pale with early sun as I made my way back to the tower, every step heavier than the last. I entered through the lobby doors, tried to calm my racing thoughts. They directed me to a side office where two stern men waited, one in a sharp suit, the other in a polo shirt with the company logo. They led me to a small conference room. No windows, just a round table and 4 chairs. "Ms. Harper," the suited man said, voice clipped. "We detected an intrusion. Your credentials were used. This is a serious offense." I drew in a careful breath. "Yes, there was a breach. But I'm not responsible." He raised a brow. "Then help us find who is." I sat, heart pounding. The room felt too small. "I can't," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But let's make a deal." They exchanged looks. "Explain," said the polo-clad officer. I leaned forward. "I know who did it. I can stop any further damage. But I have something you want. The full trail of those financials, plus personal communications you'd rather keep hidden. In exchange, I get a position, permanent access to your PR operations, and you let this go." Silence. My stomach churned. I'd offered everything in one breath. Then the suited man smiled, slow, calculating. "You're bold, Miss Harper." Before I could respond, the door opened. He stood, Malcolm Blackwood, suit immaculate, expression unreadable. He paused, looking at me. "Well," he said, voice low, "this is unexpected." My pulse thundered. The men looked away, hands itching near concealed earpieces. I swallowed. He took a step closer, eyes narrowing. "I don't tend to negotiate from weakness," he said, "but I admire resourcefulness." He turned to his team. "Remove her phone and escort Miss Harper to my office." My heart thudded, not with fear, but something that felt dangerously, like excitement as the door closed behind me. I realized I'd trapped myself in a game where the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. I had evidence that could destroy a man. But in that moment, standing alone in his private corridors, I wanted to know what secrets lay behind that pale blue gaze and what price I would pay to uncover them. The elevator dinged. I forced myself to steady my breathing. My world had just tilted on its axis, and there was no turning back. The conference room door slid shut behind us, and he turned to face me, all sharp angles of tailored charcoal and pale blue eyes that seemed to pierce through every carefully constructed lie I'd ever told. "Sit," he said, motioning to the single leather chair. I sank into it, mind racing with the realization that I'd walked straight into his private sanctum, and that every risk I'd taken to get here was about to pay off. or destroy me. He strode to his desk, picked up a slender tablet, and swiped through the screen. You propose that you orchestrated the investigator's trail, that you can reveal everything you've uncovered, even personal correspondence. His lips curved into something that might have been amusement. Why should I believe you? I met his gaze, steady. Because if you don't, your secrets go public. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, and your private letters. I forced myself to let the threat hang in the air without flinching. He tapped the tablet, and the lights dimmed. On the frosted glass wall behind me, a projection flickered to life. Emails, bank transfers, invoices, and personal notes signed in. I'm impressed, he said quietly. Not many journalists my age, or younger, have the nerve to pull this off. He paused, stepping closer. But you don't need me to expose me. You could leak everything to the press overnight. I swallowed, feeling the gravity of each heartbeat. I could, but I'd rather watch this empire from the inside. Help me help you shape the narrative. My voice caught on the word help, but I forced it steady. I want to run your PR. I'll control the fallout, spin the scandals, and protect your public image in exchange for immunity and compensation. He folded his arms. You realize that's a gilded cage? His tone was almost tender, like warning a child of a storm. Once you're in, you can't walk away. My stomach nodded. This was exactly what I wanted, exactly. What terrified me? I know the risks, I said. But I know you better now than you know yourself. Laughter flickered in his eyes. Bull. He tapped a series of commands into the tablet. The projection vanished, and the overhead lights brightened. Very well, he said, voice low. I accept your offer. But on one condition, complete discretion. You'll be bound by non-disclosure that would bankrupt you if breached. And you start first thing tomorrow. He handed me a contract, 3 dense pages of legalese, termination clauses, confidentiality agreements. My pulse pounded as I scanned it. Every clause was weighted in his favor. But I signed, fingertip trembling, knowing that even as it gave me power, it bound me to him. He extended his hand, and I stood to shake it. The contact sent a thrill up my arm. The same bolt of electricity you feel the first time you touch someone you're drawn to. Neither of us spoke as our palms closed. Then he inclined his head. Welcome aboard, Miss Harper. My new office was glass-walled and perched at the very tip of the tower, overlooking the city's arterial highways and glass-paneled high-rises. I spent my first morning reviewing every press release, every talking point, every past interview. My predecessor's work lay before me. Dutiful, cautious, utterly unremarkable. I tore it apart and rebuilt it, sharpening the language, threading in compassion, humanizing his image. For every question about tax audits or community pushback, I crafted narratives of revitalization, of ambition balanced with responsibility. By midday, I drafted a Q&A for his afternoon briefing. I practiced the questions, predicted his tone, prepared gentle corrections if he strayed. I knew him now, his intellect, his caution, his willingness to wield vulnerability when it served him. I understood that beneath the steely facade, he craved absolution for past mistakes. The ghost of Elle, the woman he'd left behind, the projects he'd sacrificed personal ties for. When he arrived for our prep session, he was all focus and cool detachment. He sat across my desk without a word, eyes drifting to the pile of notes. I spoke first. Our opening statement acknowledges concerns about displacement. Then we pivot to the community fund you've established, $20 million over 5 years. He nodded once. Good. His voice was a velvet undercurrent. What about the rumors of diverted funds? He didn't ask me to lie outright, just to smooth the narrative. I leaned in, lowering my voice. We can admit to initial miscalculations in allocation, but emphasize your personal oversight and the corrective measures you initiated. Show you're not infallible, but you're accountable. He watched me, eyes unreadable. Then he smiled, a subtle curve that softened his face. You're good at this. I allowed myself a fraction of pride. We'll need visual aids, testimonials from families benefiting from the new parks, interviews with local leaders. He stood, and I gathered the folders. Prepare everything. We'll run through the mock press conference at 6. The afternoon briefing was a masterclass in damage control, under bright camera lights and the glare of dozens of scribbling reporters. He glided through my script as if born to it. His answers were precise, heartfelt, even when he acknowledged missteps. I watched from the wings, my breath almost caught when I saw him pause, eyes meeting mine for a split second, gratitude, or something warmer, flashing there before he resumed his practiced ease. Afterward, when the crowd dispersed and the sound technicians began packing cables, he approached me. He paused, searching for words. Brilliant. He offered me a tired smile. Thank you. My chest fluttered at the sincerity of it. I nodded, cheeks warm. All in a day's work. He gestured toward the glass wall, where the city stretched out like a living tapestry. Come, walk with me. I followed. Outside on the terrace, the wind was laced with late afternoon coolness. He leaned against the railing, gaze fixed on the skyline. This position, it's not what I expected, he said. I assumed you'd be hungry for a beating story, ready to stab the serpent to make your name. He turned to me. But you've become something else. An ally. I folded my arms, fighting the quickening of my pulse. I told you, I wanted in, not out. Then softer. I want to understand you. He studied me, expression unreadable. What would you know of me? He asked. More than anyone, I replied. I know your fears, your regrets. I hesitated, then added, your strength. He was silent for a long moment. Then he reached out, brushing a stray hair from my face. The contact was electrifying. Perhaps, he said quietly, you'll help me find more strength in something other than power. His words landed between us. Charged, my heart thundered. I stepped back, suddenly aware of the boundary I was crossing. Sir, I murmured. We should. He held up a hand, eyes earnest. No titles here. Call me Malcolm. The word felt intimate on his tongue. I exhaled softly. Malcolm. We stood there, two figures against the skyline, the distance between us charged with something fragile and profound. Over the next weeks, I was his PR chief, his confidant, his shadow. I orchestrated photo ops in revitalized neighborhoods, staged exclusive interviews for glossy magazines, arranged charity galas where he could be seen with local artisans. Each event polished his image, and each moment spent by his side chipped away at my defenses. I found myself anticipating his texts. Mundane logistics lit up my phone like declarations. I studied his patterns, the way he paused before smiling, the subtle hitch in his breath when he spoke of community investment, the gentle sadness he tucked away when no one was watching. And he watched me right back, leaning in to whisper suggestions, offering genuine praise, lingering with a hand on my arm longer than protocol demanded. I caught him in quiet moments, staring at a family enjoying a playground we'd sponsored, closing his eyes as if memorizing the laughter. I realized he was haunted by people he couldn't save, causes he'd pursued at the cost of personal bonds. Point one. Evening, he invited me to dinner in the company's private dining room. The table was set for two, soft music playing in the background. Candles flickered, casting a warm glow. He poured champagne into crystal flutes. To new partnerships, he said, raising his glass. I hesitated, then touched my glass to his. As the bubbles tickled my throat, he studied me with that pale blue intensity. I've grown reliant on you, he admitted. Not just professionally. My breath caught, and I searched for the right words. I've never worked this closely with anyone. My voice faltered. I care about you. He set his glass down. I know. He stood and approached. Do you trust me? His question held an edge I hadn't expected. I met his gaze. With everything. He closed the distance, and I closed mine. His lips met mine, tentative at first, then with gathering conviction. The world narrowed to that single moment of kinship and yearning. When we finally broke apart, I felt both unsteady and anchored, but morning light revealed complications. An anonymous tip had arrived overnight. Leaks of our meetings, rumors of impropriety, allegations of insider manipulation. The board was in uproar, legal counsel was circling like vultures, and my phone buzzed with encrypted messages warning of an imminent campaign to oust him. I realized then that I'd traded one battlefield for another, and that our fragile bond would be tested by enemies within and truths we'd tried to bury. The secrets I held were not only leverage, they were shackles. And as I rushed to prepare damage control protocols, I understood that our partnership and our fledgling romance would demand everything from both of us. The sun rose across the skyline, indifferent and relentless. I squared my shoulders, steeling myself for the storm to come. Whatever the next battle, I would stand by him, because I had glimpsed the man behind the Emperor's mask, and I was not about to turn away now. Asterisk, the boardroom smelled like polished wood and panic. 12 members of Blackwood Industries board sat around the table, their faces masks of disappointment, suspicion, and something worse, betrayal. In front of them lay a series of printed emails and screenshots. Images of Malcolm entering my apartment late at night, copies of encrypted files, and a glossy magazine's cover with a headline that screamed, "The CEO and his mistress, a dangerous game of power and secrets." Malcolm hadn't spoken yet. He stood at the head of the table, tall and composed, but I could feel the tension in his shoulders. I sat to his right, every eye flicking toward me like I was the infection. They saw a woman who had seduced their leader, threatened the company's future, and dared to infiltrate their world of tailored suits and closed doors. "Let's be clear," said Sylvia Hart, the head of legal, her voice sharp. "We are facing potential SEC investigations, allegations of insider manipulation, and now a public relations scandal that compromises this entire leadership structure. Her eyes pierced me, should be removed immediately." I opened my mouth, but Malcolm lifted a hand. "She stays," he said. Gasps echoed around the table like gunfire. One man actually leaned back, stunned. Sylvia's pen slipped from her fingers. "You're protecting her?" one board member barked. "After all this?" Malcolm's eyes swept the table, cold and clear. "What I do outside this room, who I trust, is my decision. But this company's stability doesn't hinge on one relationship. It hinges on how we respond to crisis." He turned to me, voice quieter now. "Ava, show them." I stood, hands trembling, and tapped the projector. Remote. On the screen behind me, slides flickered. Timelines, edited press responses, a 6-month damage control strategy. I didn't look at their faces. I spoke straight from my chest, fast and unflinching. Blackwood Industries isn't defined by one mistake, it's defined by how it repairs them. Yes, there was an intrusion. Yes, there was an inappropriate relationship. But we've restructured protocols, secured networks, and prepared a public-facing narrative that restores trust. Click. Next slide. Malcolm Blackwood has agreed to partial transparency with regulators, a voluntary audit, and a fund to support whistleblower protections, measures that exceed industry standards. I faced the board. He's not running from this. Neither am I. And if you fire me, you lose the only person who can rebuild this brand before the fall quarter. Silence stretched long and tight. Then someone coughed. Someone else muttered, "She's not wrong." Finally, Sylvia cleared her throat. "We'll take it under review." Later, in his office, he didn't say a word, just stood by the window, the city stretching below like it didn't care about broken reputations or late-night phone calls. I watched him for a long time, unsure if I'd lost him, or if I was just starting to really see him. "You shouldn't have protected me," I said finally. "It's going to cost you your legacy." He turned. "You're wrong. You are my legacy." The words hit like a wave. "I built this company alone," he said, walking toward me. "But I was lonely. Cold. I told myself that was the price of control. Then you stormed in, fearless and relentless, and turned everything upside down. You're the first person who's seen all of me and stayed." "I stayed because I care," I whispered. "But I also have a conscience. I came here to expose you. I never meant to fall." "I know," he said gently. "But you did. And so did I." I lowered my gaze. "They'll force you to resign, Malcolm." He stepped close, brushing a hand down my arm. "Then I'll walk away. I've already drafted a letter, but not until we've stabilized everything." He handed me a flash drive. "Every truth about the company. The real story. I want you to publish it on your terms, but only after we're ready." I stared at it. "Are you serious? I don't want my legacy built on lies." Tears filled my eyes. "You're going to let it all go?" "I'm going to let you go," he said softly. "Not because I want to, but because if I love you, I have to let you be free." 2 months later, the headlines had shifted. Blackwood resigns in dramatic fall, but leaves a cleaner empire behind. We never saw each other again after that night. He disappeared from the public eye, retreating to an estate in New Zealand, or maybe Scotland. The rumors said, I rebuilt my career as a journalist, wrote the exposé that told the full story. But I protected the parts of him that deserved protection. That I never forgot his voice in that last voicemail, the one I kept saved in an encrypted folder of my own. You taught me something, Ava. That power means nothing without someone to hold it with you. I hope you find that person someday. I hope. I was almost him. Sometimes I walk by the tower, now under new ownership. The glass still gleams, but it feels emptier. Colder. Still, when people ask me if I regret it, if I regret falling for a man like Malcolm Blackwood, I always say the same thing. He ruined my plans, but he rewrote my purpose. And in a world full of broken things, that matters more than anything.